Halo Infinite's Great Journey Winter Update arrives this Tuesday, and it actually looks pretty good. We got a lot to look forward to here. A lot of it hotly requested from the community. A brand new third-person mode, which is pretty exciting. A classic Halo playlist, finally. I know a lot of us have been asking for that. It's a Halo 2 inspired playlist. It's the 20th anniversary of Halo 2, complete with 7 maps. And a brand new starting weapon. We got the MA5K Avenger SMG. That's right. It's a new weapon in Halo Infinite. I know. We got 2 new ranked maps, Forge updates, Sandbox updates, and new cosmetics as well. The classic Halo 2 Chief, some elite-style armor pieces is pretty cool. And while there's definitely some W's here, it's not perfect. I do have some concerns, so I'm just going to share my thoughts on everything in the update today. We got the Sandbox Overview article here in front of me. Of course, Unishek and Sketch have already demoed the full updates. We're going to take a look at some gameplay, and just the good, the bad, and the ugly with what to expect, not just with this update, but going forward as well. So let's dive into this thing. If you guys like the discussion, don't forget to sub. Let me know in the comments what you think of the update, if it's a game changer, if it's worth a reinstall, or are we just on life support. But let's start with third-person mode. We can now play Halo in third person, which is clearly just Halo Studios trying to latch on to Fortnite fans and sell their cosmetics. Just kidding. Maybe. Though it does actually look pretty cool. I am looking forward to this. It's a permanent addition to the game, and it's at the game mode level. So it's not just a setting that you can change midway through the game. You have to select this as a mode, and it's going to be exclusive to Firefight and custom games just for now. It looks like a pretty seamless, natural addition to Halo's gameplay. We've had third-person elements in Halo since back in Halo 3. If you think of the way that turrets would function when you detach a turret, or certain armor abilities or equipment in past Halo games have operated in third person. Sketch and Unishek bring up the fact that the debug version of Halo Infinite actually has like a third person feature.
We had Nick pull up debug third person camera on one of the Spartans, and so we were controlling our own Spartans in third person as we were setting up shots, and I was like, okay, interesting. If this exists already in the game, you know, as like a debug thing, how difficult would it be to potentially bring that and expose it to our players?
So basically they had a lot of the framework in place. They just had to sort of put it together, polish it up so it's seamless on release, which I'm sure takes some resources, but I do think this is kind of like a running theme of this update, where they are a smaller team. There's only so many people focused on Infinite, and a portion of them focused on the next Halo project. So they're doing what they can with what they have to bring us new content, you know, with their limited capacity. And that's not to say that there weren't a lot of variables that went into putting this together. Like Sketch and Unishek brought up a lot of great points, like the descope functionality in Halo Infinite, but in third person, making that work in a way that looks natural. And as far as I can tell, they pulled it off. And if you're using a weapon that doesn't have a scope, you get like a shoulder zoom. They showed off FOV changes as well. If you jump into 120 FOV, you get a full wide range of your environment. And when you drop it down, you get this like Dead Space, Gears of War kind of vibe, which is pretty cool. It is kind of weird looking at third-person gameplay and not having some sort of like a roll feature. Like if there was any time to bring the evade mechanic from Halo Reach back to Halo, it would be now. We still have thrust and grapple and repulse, but it looks like a good time in Firefight and a nice casual play space to try it out. I'm glad it's in custom games, though. I'm not really a Firefight guy, so I'm looking forward to trying this in custom games. I think the big difference in gameplay, of course, is just the added awareness you get from third person. You can peek around walls on the right and above you. As far as I'm aware, there's no sort of like lefty flip, so right-hand advantage is going to be very powerful. It would be cool to see a dedicated ranked playlist, either Slayer or Arena, that's third person only. I'm just curious to see how this game plays competitively, if everybody has like insane awareness. So I'm going to try this out in customs. All in all, though, this is a very welcome feature. I feel like third person is going to help a lot with accessibility as well. Sketch brought up a great point about this. Playing first-person shooters can be a lot and kind of like a nausea-inducing experience for some people. Playing in third person might make the game a little bit more accessible. And I think for awareness as well, the fact that you can get shot in the back and know exactly where you're getting shot from versus in first person, it's a little bit trickier to kind of recognize those cues. I think it might help people learn how to play Halo at a higher level, maybe. Like I think skill jumps, maybe if I'm teaching skill jumps in third person, you guys will understand, you know, the positioning and how to set up the jump a little bit better. So is it a game changer that'll welcome thousands of new Halo players? Probably not, but it's a cool feature and it'll make the game more accessible, so I'm not complaining. This might bring back some old Halo fans, though. We got the Delta Arena Classic Halo playlist. Picture it. The year is 2004. Mountain Dew and Doritos are the snacks de rigueur. and the sequel to 2001's hit game Halo Combat Evolved is in your Xbox, ready to go. Halo 2, I'd say, arguably the best Halo in the franchise. This playlist has no sprint, no clamber, increased jump height, and friendly player collision. I'm actually very curious about the player collision. I hope that that's a toggleable option in custom games, because this is a feature we've been waiting for a while, and I hope it works properly. Like, the player collision with opponents is sort of weird, I think, at least in this game. Like, I want it to feel like when I'm jumping on a player, I'm jumping on like a block in the environment so that you can use it for creative movement in game, especially in this classic playlist when we don't have other forms of movement to get around. The biggest criticism of this mode is that it looks like base movement is not changing at all. I see a lot of people talking about that, especially when it comes to strafing, like the lack of strafe inertia in Halo Infinite and the difficulty tracking targets. I think especially for M&K players, I've seen a lot of clips from M&K players just having difficulty with the strafe speed and the instant acceleration of the strafe speed. I know that Lucid has talked about the power of jiggle peeking in Halo Infinite, how quickly you can peek around corners because the strafe instantly accelerates. I personally don't mind the fast strafe. Like, I kind of like the very responsive feel of Halo Infinite's base movement, but I understand the criticism. And I think if they were to make a change like this for the classic playlist, my only worry is the butterfly effect that comes from it, right? Because you can't just change base movement and keep aim assist the same way that it is, right? If you change and slow down the strafe, you got to change the aim assist, the bullet magnetism, and every single weapon and how they work in the sandbox. So it's just a very, I think, complicated switch, and that's probably why they didn't do anything to base movement. But curious to hear your thoughts on the whole strafe acceleration situation, and maybe if it's something that should be done for the next Halo game. Maybe they should bring back the inertia in the future of Halo. I just think it's probably very complicated in this playlist. These maps look pretty sick, though. We've got 7 Forge-made maps here. Ascension, Boulevard, which is turf, Canopy, which is Lockout, but like Guardian vibes. Lockout, this one looks sick. Conjurer, remake of Warlock, Inquisitor, Midship, which we're going to be talking about, Serenity, Sanctuary. I played on this map a lot. This Sanctuary is actually quite fun. Beaver Canyon, Beaver Creek. Big ups to the Halo community forgers that put these maps together. They look great. I just hope that the experience playing on them is as good as it looks. I guess my only worry with these forge maps is 1, performance, and then 2, balance. When you've got no advanced mobility, but with Halo Infinite's weapons and sandbox, how is it going to feel to play on these maps? Like, I just imagine Sanctuary trying to run a flag. Like, some of these maps are sort of resized to accommodate Halo Infinite's mobility, but we won't have that in the playlist. So if you're just jumping with your extra floaty jump and somebody's got a BR, like, will they just melt you for free, So curious about the gameplay, but optimistic. We do have a new starting weapon, though, in the playlist, and that might change things. We got the MA5K SMG, a new weapon in Halo Infinite for the first time in what feels like, I think, 3 years. We've had 2 bandits, and then we got this. And it looks okay. It looks like an SMG. The model of this Avenger SMG is apparently pulled from the cover of a Halo book, the Ghosts of Onyx Halo book. I haven't read it, but it's right from Halo lore, supposedly. It's very similar looking to the AR, as you'd expect from an SMG, with some key differences. Like, it's got a fast ready up time, so if you pick it up off the ground or switch weapons to the weapon, it's going to ready up and shoot in the same way that like a sidekick would. It's got a large magazine, 60 bullet magazine, which is almost double the size of the AR. The AR is 36, and it shreds through those bullets quickly, so a very high rate of fire, which gives it a very satisfying sound. And as expected, it looks very strong in close quarters. Apparently you can down 2 fully shielded Spartans with 1 magazine with this thing. Like, the time to kill is kind of insane, but it blooms instantly. Like, it hits max bloom right away. So if you're, mid-range, anywhere farther, it's going to be very hard to hit shots. The reticle is so wide by default that you're not pinpointing anything with this weapon, so it is very much just, spray and pray. Apart from that, if I'm being honest, it's not really that exciting. Like, is it even competitively viable? Probably not. Like, maybe if this is a mid-tier power weapon and it replaced a shotgun and we modified the ammo a little bit, depending on how easy it is to use, maybe, as a power weapon, you could see it in competitive, but it's not like something I would want instead of, say, a Sentinel Beam or, a Cinder Shot that might look more appealing for spectators. It also has the exact same ready up and reload animations as the AR, and I've seen tweets about this online from people saying, like, it's supposed to, because it's from the same, like, base model as the AR or whatever. It's, sure, maybe that's correct, but it's clearly very safe. And of all the weapons that they could have added, this is the easiest weapon for them to add, let's be honest. And that doesn't mean that I'm not happy that we got it. Like, it is still a new weapon. We've been asking for new weapons for a while. It's great to see something like this. It's a W. It's a step in the right direction, but it definitely, again, gives me the impression that this is a very limited team that's working on Halo right now, and there's only so much that they can do, and they're just kind of doing what they can, which I can appreciate. But it just sort of sets my expectations low as to what else to expect going forward. Like, there's a shotgun that they've been working on. That would have been way more exciting to see that didn't come out, right? There's a combat knife that I think was leaked. That would be exciting, but it's like, you know, there's certain exclusive animations accompanied with something like that. Is that out of the realm of, you know, feasibility for this Halo Studios team to release something like that or release a new map? I guess we'll wait and see either way. So, well, it's nice that we're getting something new. It's definitely not like the most exciting addition to the sandbox. I think that's a fair criticism. Also, with the balance of the weapons now, like, I feel like its role is sort of redundant. You can let me know in the comments what you guys think as well. I know that the AR recently became less precise and more spray heavy. They got rid of some of the precision with the AR, but they reduced the max bloom with the AR so that you can spray it more reliably now, which makes it kind of just like a weaker version with slightly more range than the SMG. But I guess in general, the AR and SMG are similar weapons. I don't know. Anyway, it's a good segue into the fact that we've got new sandbox updates for other weapons as well. So the VK-78 Commando actually got like the AR treatment, basically, where when it hit max bloom, the bullets were trending to the outer edge of the reticle. They've now tightened that bloom up so the bullets stay within the reticle, but now it blooms earlier. So it says to balance out the more accurate Commando, the bloom will reach maximum spread slightly quicker than before. So it's like buffed and nerfed, and we're not really going to know how it feels till we play with the weapon, essentially, but you might have to feather it more, or depending on the range, you know, who knows? We'll have to play with it. The sidekick also got sort of buffed and nerfed, I guess. So they said the sidekick has always been one of the most effective weapons in the sandbox. We wanted to keep that consistent feeling while also addressing feedback around it still feeling a little too effective at range. So kind of similar to what they did with the Commando. They tightened up the bloom, the maximum bloom. When it hits max bloom, the bullets stay in the reticle, but it blooms slightly earlier. It also seems like, from what I gathered from the interview, it sounded like the first bullet that you fire has a randomness to it, which I don't like the sound of personally. Their intention is to nerf the range, the effectiveness of the weapon at range, so I get it. But just the idea of having bloom on the first shot just kind of irks me. I guess we'll have to see. For me, though, it just didn't feel like the weapon needed to be adjusted at all. But, you know, whatever. The active camo, apparently they're adjusting too. So Sneaky Beaver flag runs are a staple of Capture the Flag, which provide exciting and creative gameplay experiences. With that in mind, we've seen players on the offensive utilize camo flag run with extremely high efficiency. So they basically made it so that when you grab the flag while you're camoed, the flag still appears, but you disappear, versus you and the flag disappearing together, which is how they had it before. Camo has been taken out of every competitive flag map in HCS currently. There's no competitive map that has camo. So if they wanted to bring camo back, that might be a nice rebalance. Like if we played Argyle, for example, and you try to do a sneaky flag run and the flag is exposed. I've also seen a lot of feedback around camo and OS being a little bit too weak, personally, so I'm surprised they're not considering a buff there. Like in HCS, for example, camo is seen like instantly. It's a tricky balancing act though, right? Because if it's too powerful, then it can snowball the game. But I think there might be some room to maybe increase the effectiveness of the OS and camo. They're nerfing thrust too, though. Apparently, this is pretty minor, though. They're basically setting it to the way that it was in Halo 5. So with the thrust currently, when you thrust, you can shoot and thrust at the same time. So if you got an automatic weapon, you can hold the trigger down and just like thrust while still shooting. Now there's going to be like a brief delay during the thrust animation, the same as it was in Halo 5. I'm not sure if the timing will be identical, but I think this is fine. Personally, I don't think this is going to impact the competitive side of the game too much. Sure, you're going to have to think a little bit more about like how you're timing your shots, but because of the rate of fire of the Bandit, the rate of fire of the BR, it's already pretty slow. If you have good timing, it shouldn't impact the speed of your shot. I think at least, unless you're using like a commando or a sidekick. The bigger issue with the thrust though is just the movement, right? Like how jarring it is. If you curb slide one direction and then thrust the other, it's very difficult to track, but also tricky to balance. And speaking of balance, I think these two new maps come into ranked. They're my favorite thing about this update. So we've got Inquisitor, the remake of Midship, and then Fortress, which is an entirely new map joining ranked. Very curious to see how they play. My one reservation just off the bat with, or I got a couple with Midship, it's small, first off. If you guys have played FFA on Midship, it's a very fun map, very faithful recreation. It's chaotic. playing with 8 players in FFA. It's going to be chaotic playing in CTF. I've done some wild movement on this map already. There's some pretty crazy slides, and I've seen Broward already flying around on the map as well. You can cross basically the entire map in one go. Of course, you have to think about risk, reward, and practicality with stuff like this. A lot of these slides are very in the open, very punishable. Same goes with Fortress. Fortress has some insane slides that I'm afraid to show right away, but also, you know, very risky, very vulnerable. I'm excited about Fortress. At first, I wasn't sure. Having played on it again recently, it's actually a lot of fun. And it plays very differently than what we have currently in Ranked. It plays a lot more like classic Halo. The way the sight lines work, how open they are, how much your aim becomes a priority, and how instantly you're in the action with both of these maps. It's just going to feel a lot different to play on these maps than what we're used to, I think, which is exciting. Is it competitively viable? I got no idea, but I guess we're going to find out. My last worry here, though, and where I'm going to kind of wrap this up, is with performance with these maps, especially with Midship. Midship has a known frame rate issue on Xbox, on all the Xboxes, I believe, even Series X, where you essentially look into the center of the map and you drop from like 120 to 80 frames. And as far as I'm aware, that hasn't been changed yet. I really hope it's changed on Tuesday, because if there are significant frame rate issues, people are going to be upset. And there's no way that Halo Studios isn't aware of this. I had a really insightful conversation with Timmy Forges recently. He's a high-level forger in the community that gave me some insight, and I had a few other forgers reply to me. Let me know that it's the Covenant pieces specifically that's causing this issue. Covenant pieces are curved, and there's a lot of polygons in these curved pieces that are difficult for the GPU when players are interacting with these curved surfaces, apparently. So, and also with other pieces, I think like maybe Flood might fall into this category as well, and it's why we might not be seeing competitive Flood maps. Like, performance is such an important concern, especially in the ranked playlist. It's going to kill any sort of competitive integrity. So I seriously hope they found a way to improve this, because in the Forge update portion of this, they got a Forge article, which is nice. None of this talks about stability. There's a lot of great little quality of life improvements to Forge. I'm not going to read through it all, but if you are a forger, you'd appreciate some of the adjustments that they're making here. None of this says anything about stability. So I don't know. I'm just sort of hoping for the best here. Overall, though, I'd say this is a pretty good update. I'd say if you're a dedicated Halo fan, this is a good update. We got a classic playlist. We got third-person mode, some stuff to look forward to. If you're kind of outside of the Halo space and looking in, there's definitely no game changers here that are going to suddenly propel Halo into mainstream. I don't think that's going to happen until we get a new Halo title. By the way, at the end of this Halo Studios showcase, Sketch talked about what to expect going on into the new year with Halo. So we've got another small update apparently coming out in December and a small one in January. The next big update is February, supposedly. So just as a guess, we don't know what's happening with HCS next year and when the roadmap is coming out and when all of that's starting. I think we might be waiting until February till we finalize what's going on with the roadmap, what's happening with the new competitive maps, because I'm assuming we're going to have new maps decided for competitive by then. We might not get an event until the end of March or like April or something, but I don't know, just speculating. But that's all I got. Update comes out Tuesday. Let me know what you think in the comments. Is it a W? I want to thank my Patreon subscribers for the continued support. It honestly means a lot, so thank you so much. I've got more educational content on the way. I've got an Oddball Masterclass almost finished. Stay tuned. And if you want more content from me, whether it's educational, roster mania, whatever, right here. This is the way.